Hey everyone, this is BrettFish Anderson. Welcome to another episode of Out of the Fishbowl. Thank you for listening. And if you clicked on this episode, you already know that this is going to be a bit of a challenging one. And let me state up front that I am not an expert on these things. And I was up in Joburg recently chatting to my friend Byron about Israel and my stance and listening to his stance and saying what I think we have to do as the bare minimum. And he said to me, why don't you do a podcast on this? And so I thought about it. And while I'm not an expert on these things, I've heard a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings again and again and again on social media, even from some of my friends who support Israel, things that they believe or things that they don't believe. And so I'm hoping in this episode to be able to debunk some of those, to be able to clear the water a little bit. I hope that you are diving in with an open mind, and let's really explore this honestly together in an episode titled The Problem with Israel. So there are a lot of conflicts happening around the world at the moment. Some of those are really hectic, really intense. And there are a lot of huge issues that we could be dealing with. Why are you tackling Israel? I live in Cape Town, South Africa, and I grew up during apartheid, and it feels like this is a global issue that is in line with what happened with South Africa. In South Africa, there was a time, and it happened a lot before people actually reacted in the way they should have, but a time when the world said collectively, this is not okay. This is not allowed to continue, and sanctions happened, and we were barred from sport, and all those kind of things happened because the world kind of got it. This is some place, some issue we need to step in on, and they were right, and it should have happened a lot earlier. And that's what Israel feels like to me at the moment. It is not any worse a crisis than some of the stuff that is happening in other places like Congo and Sudan, and we can mention many places. But this is a global issue. It's one that has got support from some certain big nations and big celebrities, big names, big money, and it feels like something that we need to have an opinion on, we need to have a stance on, we need to have action on. And with something like this, we often feel super helpless, and maybe we'll get to that a little bit later. But at the very least, the hope of this episode, the hope of this conversation and conversations we have, the very least, the lowest bar is for us to get to a place where we go, this is not okay. And I've got friends who are not at that place, and that blows my mind. How can we not look at what has happened and go, what is happening there is not okay? And so I've got, I think, 7 points that I want to take you through. Some of the misconceptions, some things people think or misunderstand, and maybe there's something that's new to you. Maybe they're not all new to you, and maybe just some things to consider. And the first one is this. A lot of people look back to this Israel-Palestine thing and they go, October 7th, 2023, that's where it all started. And so Hamas is the big enemy because they did all these bad things. On that day, something like 1,200 Israelis were killed, and 251 people were taken hostage. And the numbers that I quote, you can go to different places and find different numbers. The numbers give us a general idea, and they're going to be hopefully within a degree of accuracy. But the thing is, and one of the most important things to know, and for people to get, and maybe whole conversations can be swayed by this thing, is that this conflict did not begin on October 7th. And when I look back historically in terms of the little bit of research, because I've been doing research, I've been doing reading, I've been talking to people, I've got friends that have gone to visit Israel, and I've spoken to them. I've spoken and listened to people that have come from Israel, from Palestine, from Gaza, and I've listened to them. And so I am building up knowledge. As I said, I'm not an expert. But one of the earliest things I discovered is this thing that was called the Nakba in 1948. And it was seen as an ethnic cleansing or a dispossession of the land. And it happened sometime between 1947 and 1949, where more than 750,000 Palestinians out of 1.9 million population were made refugees. And in that time, something like 530 villages or cities were destroyed. More than 15,000 Palestinians were killed in more than 70 massacres. And the thing that as I've been speaking about it and as I've been mentioning Nakba, other people have come on and said, no, that's not the beginning. It goes back to this and that. And while that is relevant, I don't think it's specifically relevant to this point. And the main point and focus is that this whole conflict did not start on October 7th, 2023. And I remember we had an amazing preach in church the one time where this guy called Rowan got up and he said, there's a problem if you start a story at the point of secondly. And so what he's talking about is if we start the story of South Africa in 1994, then we're missing all the years of apartheid. We're missing all the years of colonialism. And you can't look back at the last 30 years and say, oh, well, this is all about the ANC government messing up and not getting it right. We have to understand what happened before and what happened before that. And so if you start the story on October 7th, 2023, you have a half story, you have an incomplete story. It's easy to look at that and go, that is a shocking event, because I agree with you. The fact that 1,200 people were killed, that is shocking. It is not okay. But if we see that as the start of the story, we are getting it wrong. So if that is your thinking, please go and read up on the Nakbas, on various other stories that happened before then. This story goes way before that. And so the second point is connected, because Hamas was formed in 1987. And so if we are blaming this whole thing, this whole conflict right now, it's just Hamas, it's all about destroying Hamas. No, because this conflict started before Hamas was even a thing. That blew my mind a little bit. It felt like, oh, Hamas, they've always been around, because my history is not great. As you read a little bit, 1987, and we're talking about this Nakba that happened in 1948. So almost 40 years later, Hamas comes onto the scene. And so Hamas are relevant to the story. And some of the atrocities, all of the atrocities that they've done are not okay. We can maybe understand some of them given the context of what's happened. We can understand that if you keep bombing and keep killing and keep devastating people and keep on holding food away from them, at some point they are going to crack. And so we can say we don't justify necessarily how that happens, but we can understand that when you keep throwing stones at people, sooner or later something's going to happen. And so this thing didn't start on October 7th. Hamas is not the cause and the main instigator. They are a player in the present way that this conflict is playing out. But this conflict was waging a long time before them. And then my third point that I was kind of alluding to just now is that every death is too much. And so I get a bit nervous. It feels a bit uncomfortable coming out from my lips if I say I'm pro-Palestine, because I'm not pro-Palestine as much as I'm pro-people not being killed. I'm pro-babies not being killed. I'm pro-journalists and doctors and relief workers not being killed. And I'm pro that regardless of whether they are Palestinian or whether they are Israeli. And so on October 7th, when 1,200 Israeli people are killed, I'm anti that. And if it was Hamas that did that, then I totally am against that act. But again, saying we've got to understand this bigger picture. Every death is too much. Anytime somebody dies, it's too much. And anytime we are pulling babies out of rubble, and this is the thing that blows my mind, and I'm going to get to the point where I approach this as a person of faith, as a Christian, as a Jesus follower, because there are Jesus following friends of mine who can see babies being pulled out of rubble and still give some kind of justification for that. And I cannot give a justification. Anytime babies are being killed, something is desperately wrong. It shouldn't matter who they are. And it was Ta-Nehisi Coates. I saw an amazing interview with him where he was talking along those lines and just helping me with the language of it. And so he talks about the death penalty, which I'm against. And he says, I'm against the death penalty. And so in any situation, it doesn't matter who the person is or what they've done, I'm against it. I'm against apartheid. I don't care who the people are being apartheided against. I'm against it. And so if you have that stance, this is something I'm against. When it comes to you, even in the form of your friends or family or people you support, you should be able to go, no, that's not okay, because I've drawn the line at that thing. For me, death penalty is one of those things. For me, the killing of children, the killing of anyone, women, children, journalists, doctors, relief workers, being killed, being targeted, being killed as they were on the way to places they were told were safe, and then being killed in those places they were told that they were safe. And we're not talking about propaganda here. We're not talking about fake videos. We're talking about case after case after case of seeing these people and hearing from them via social media and hearing from people that have gone to visit and hearing from people that have come out of the place. These things are real. And those are the extreme of the things. Not even talking about where Palestinians are allowed to travel or who's allowed to go where or who's allowed to be in what spaces. Not talking about the amount of food that has been kept out and that millions of people are literally being starved. And how do we not look at that and go, that's not okay? Surely the low bar, even if we're struggling with the difficulties of, oh, I'm a Christian person and Israel is meant to be the promised nation, we look at it and we go, that is not okay. And then the fourth point is it's important to note the distinction between Zionism versus Judaism. And so if people are saying Israel is wrong here, they often get branded anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, and that is not the case. My friend Megan, every Wednesday, is standing in town protesting. She's Jewish, but she's anti-Zionist. Those are not my people. Those people are not what I stand for. They're not who I am, and I will not align myself with them. And she's been really helpful in helping me find the language and the understanding and kind of the energy to do stuff. And she does way more than I do. And so it's important that we realize that Zionism, the definition I found is that it's a nationalist movement which advocates for a homeland for the Jewish people in the biblical land of Israel. And I would add, given everything I've read and seen over the last few months, at any cost. And the thing is, what's interesting is that the Israeli president will say that, the Israeli leaders will say that. They're not hiding the fact of the killing, of what they're trying to do, of the starvation. They are blatant about it a lot of the time. And so you can go listen to their words. And so Zionism is not Judaism. Jewish people, there's a religion, there's a culture. Zionism is a very specific extremist group of people that want Israel back at all costs, and that I believe are involved in the genocide of the Palestinian people that are in that space. Point number 5, I've touched on this. There are tragedies in the Congo, in Sudan. We can name so many other places. There are genocides or wars where there are just evil war crimes happening, and we cannot forget those places. This is not about that. 2 things can be correct at the same time. 3 things can be correct at the same time. And it's important that we fight against injustice wherever it is. And so we're not trying to belittle what happens in those spaces. But I kind of mentioned why, like, Israel feels like something that we should really be speaking into, especially because world powers are getting involved and because of the corruption there and backing Israel in many cases and supplying weapons. And there is blood on the hands of many nations, and they will be held accountable for it. And then the next point is tone of voice. And this is a tricky one, I guess. But I've watched videos, I've listened to, I try not to watch videos. Some of the videos are just too hectic. The assassinations, the killings, the people burning, like, it's too much. It's too much to keep watching. But trying to follow the story. And so following a lot of people on social media that are commenting, following spaces and people I trust, people that have been there, people that have heard from there. And when I hear Palestinians, this is a across-the-board thing. Their tone has been so gentle. We had a pastor come speak to us after a protest that we did a couple of months ago in Cape Town, and he got up to speak, and there wasn't an angry, violent, aggressive word from him. His heart and his message and his tone emulated Jesus in saying, just let us live. We just want peace. Stop killing us. Let the children have food. Let's figure this thing out. And that's what I've heard from Palestinians across the board. And I'm sure there are other examples, and I'm sure there are some kind of Hamas words and videos and things that we can see that are the extreme and aren't that. But I'm just saying that again and again and again and again, the tone of the Palestinian people that I've seen has been, please just stop killing us. We've seen so many videos with kids. Please stop killing us. Please just give me something to eat. Whereas I've seen a lot of videos and a lot of commentary from Israel where it is a lot more aggressive. And I know it's not all of them. I read about amazing stories of Israeli people going to the borders and protesting to stand alongside the Palestinian people. And that's amazing. That's phenomenal. But I've seen the jokes, and I've seen people that have been raiding houses and parading with stuff they've got, and people holding flags of, and it's been a lot of it has just been really sick and disgusting. And there's been a lot of that. And so just the attitude and the tone, like, I'm yet to see kind of a Palestinian tone that is like aggressive and kill and violence and all of that. And again, like, if you keep on throwing stones at somebody, that's what you'd expect. And yet so many cases, they're just saying, please, we just want to live. We just want to be okay. We just want food. And that brings me to my last point. And this is specifically as a person of faith, as someone who tries to follow Jesus. It blows my mind that other people who call themselves Christian can back Israel as the promised nation in the Bible. So we've got to support them. In view of the facts, again, of babies being pulled out of rubble, of people being targeted, shot in the head, of food being kept from people, which goes against everything Jesus was about, the kingdom of God was about, and the Bible was about. the early command and the early setup of the people of Israel at the beginning of the Bible is that they were a nation that were meant to bless other nations. That's the original story that was meant to be. And because it goes wrong, there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of chaos that goes through the Bible. But original setup was, I've made you a nation to bless other nations. And every time that Israel has kind of stepped out of doing that and being the promised people of God, God has held them to account. There's the 70 years where they go to exile in Babylon, and God says, I'm punishing you. You had other gods as idols. You didn't bless the nations around you, and you didn't live the way I wanted you to, and so you will be punished. And so even if we are saying, well, it's the Israel, it's God's chosen people, and even if we think they go into the New Testament and they're still God's chosen people, anytime chosen people step out of line, God steps in and goes, that's not okay. There's a story in the New Testament where one of Jesus' disciples says something, and Jesus says, get away from me, Satan. You have in mind the things of men, not of God. Jesus called out Peter, James, and John when they got it wrong, the people who should have known better, the people who were being called to a better way of living. Jesus called them out publicly. Paul calls out Peter publicly. That is the Christian way, that even if we're saying, no, Israel are the chosen people and they promised that, even if we're saying all of that, which I'm not, because I believe in the New Testament, God opens the doors to everybody. And you read in the book of Revelations, there will be people of every tribe and tongue worshiping and praising God. God opens, there's no longer Jew, there's no longer Gentile, because all are together in the kingdom of God. And so even if we take the ridiculousness of saying those are still the people of God, then we look at Jesus where he's asked, what is the greatest commandment? And he says, love your neighbor as yourself. And he backs that up by saying, love your enemy, pray for them, pray for those who persecute you, look after them. He backs that up in Matthew 25, where he talks about the sheep and the goats. And he says, when I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. And if you didn't do that, depart from me. You are not of me. But if you are doing that, when you did this for the least of my brothers of mine, you did it for me. That is the call of Jesus. The gospel of Christianity is a call to justice. It's a call to love God with heart, soul, strength, and mind. And it's a call to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so where do we land with that? As a Christian especially, I can't be silent. And maybe for some of you, it's I can't be silent anymore, because there came this time in the groundswell of what was going on in South Africa where the world started paying attention and started hearing and started understanding and started putting their hands up and started saying, we get it now. It's not okay. And some of you maybe haven't got it for the longest time. And then get it today, get it now, get it in this moment. Go read and listen and do the research and just go to that low bar that says anytime a child is killed, it's not okay. Anytime a journalist is targeted or a doctor is murdered or relief workers are killed who are just trying to help people, that is not okay. And let's get our voices out. And if that is the most minimum thing you do, let it be. There's an amazing book I found helpful called On Palestine, and it's a conversation between Noam Chomsky and Ilan Pappé. And that was a really helpful conversation. But start educating yourself. I read a couple of novels as well that just kind of painted the picture and started to help build up a picture for me about what is going. And then, as I said, I've spoken to people that are there. I've spoken to people that have visited, and I do whatever I can to have the most balanced approach that I can. Because voices on either extreme are polluting and are propaganding or whatever. But you cannot watch like daily news and video the onslaught day after day after day and close your eyes and say that's not happening or say it is justified somehow. And if you do and you are somebody who's calling yourself a Jesus follower, then I want to say that you have no idea who Jesus is and you are not following him. Because if we had to honestly ask, if Jesus shows up today and we had to honestly ask, where would Jesus appear? He would be digging through the rubble and helping pull out those children. We know that. He would be standing with the queues of hungry people and maybe bringing something out of the air to feed them. And he would also be standing alongside the Israeli soldiers and calling them to be better and calling them to do better. And he would be standing rebuking the politicians, rebuking them for continuing to feed this war, this genocide with weapons. And we even have the benefit. One of the times of being proud of being a South African is that we sent a delegation to the International Court of Justice in December 2023, and they proclaimed that this is a genocide, that this people are being wiped out. And it's been incredible to see people slowly come to that. I saw a British parliamentarian the other day who had been saying the whole time he'd been backing Israel, and he stood up and he said, I just can't do it anymore. What I've seen is too much. I have to admit that I got it wrong. And then Piers Morgan the other day, he has done a turnabout on this. He's just naming what is so blatant. He's like, you can't look at this and say it's okay anymore. And if Piers Morgan can get it, then hopefully more of us can get it. The problem with Israel is that it's not all of our problem, but it needs to be. And so start speaking out, even if the bottom line of what you say, like post something on social media, speak up in your family groups and your WhatsApp groups and say what is happening is not okay. And there may be a cost to that. And that was the conversation I had with Byron. There may be a cost to that, but in life, there have to be some lines where we go, when that line is crossed, I don't care what the cost is, I am going to do the right thing. And sometimes it may be harder than others, but certain things you just go, that's too far. And Israel, Palestine, Gaza, the West Bank, this is an issue and a reality that has gone too far. It is time for you to speak up. It is not okay to be silent anymore. If you are silent, you are complicit. Educate yourself. Find out where you can step out, where you can join a protest. Every Wednesday in town by St. George's, you can join them. There are things that happen Friday nights. There are walks and protests, and there's clothing you can buy, and there are places you can boycott, and we can all do our little bit to hopefully collectively put our hands up and say, this is not okay. It needs to stop now. Thank you for listening. And like I said, this is a challenging topic because I'm not an expert, but you don't have to be an expert to know the things that I've pointed out now, and to know that it's not okay, and to know that my voice matters and is urgently needed to be heard on this, and so is your voice. Please get somebody you know, get all the people you know to listen to this episode, to engage with this, to pass it on. Let's get more and more people to build that groundswell so that they won't be able to ignore us anymore, and that the world powers will have to join us in saying this needs to stop now. Anytime any child, any person is killed, it should be too much. And so let's make a stand. Thank you for listening.